Coach, always great to talk to you. First question, you've gone from corduroy suits at Montana Tech to wearing Jordans on the sidelines. Can you kind of put into words this 40 or so year career that you've put together?
Well, the corduroy suit was tan from J.C. Penney's. I'm having a hard time remembering if it was $49.99, $59.99, or $69.99. I'm saying $69.99 might have been lit out of our price range, so it's probably $50.
But it was your first game when you were head coach. So
yeah. I wore a suit every year I ever coached with a coat and tie until the pandemic, COVID hit. Both of my kids were born in Montana. And I think now that they're working for me, kind of puts it into perspective of how long it's been. But one guy, the younger guy, didn't know what he was doing. You know, if it'd been a good job, they would have never hired me. You know, it was an engineering college where every degree curriculum required a minimum of 30 credits of math. You know, who coaches at those schools, right?
You.
I'll take it. I'll take it. I'll see. And then today, that one made a ton of mistakes. This one still makes a lot of mistakes, maybe just as many.
Would you ever consider teaching a basketball techniques class here at U of H again? You did it at Montana Tech in 1980. There was a phone number in the paper advertising. Just call you directly. I don't know if that would work these days.
I taught that, and I also taught a racquetball class, I think.
Nice.
Yeah. But I played a lot of racquetball when I was at Michigan State. I learned to play there. I taught a racquetball class. That's how I kind of got addicted to it.
Okay.
Mike Zimmer, who was coach for the Minnesota Vikings, was assistant football coach. And Donnie Newman, who was my assistant, the three of us would play cutthroat. And those games were competitive. You get a blue whelp on the back of your leg, and I can't tell how many times the three of us kind of bowed up at each other over it. But that was a good memory.
No teaching classes now, though.
No, I don't.
Would you do that again?
Yeah, I would, because I enjoy teaching to kids that want to learn. Judd Heathcote, who I worked for at Michigan State, taught a coaching class every semester. Maybe first semester, every year he was there.
That's such a unique thing, I would think, for a coach at a major institution to do. I think you'd get a pretty big line coming out the door.
yeah, but I would want, there's a lot of kids that will wind up coaching, whether it be their son's team, with their daughter's team, a Saturday team, AAU team, or maybe even be a junior high coach or a high school coach. I would want someone in there that wants to learn and would take it serious. I don't want to be teaching the class, everybody think they're going to get an A. I wouldn't want that.
I don't think anybody would just get an A with you.
No. They'd have to earn that one. I did. I took Judd's coaching class, and I was a lot of pressure to get an A in that one.
Well, it seems like your guys now with this team are, if they haven't gotten an A, they're working their way towards it. How enjoyable is this group that you have right now?
Daniel, I enjoy every group. I don't think I have one group that I enjoy any more. Like last year's group, got extremely close when Marcus and Tremont went down. They had something they took ownership quicker, and they had a common goal. Because people were saying that, well, you lost those two guys, you guys are dead, you're done. We pulled an article about that. Houston's over, their season's over, they lost these guys. And so that became a rallying point. For this team, our veterans had to bring the freshmen along. Because this is the first time we played freshmen. Jarris, Terrence, Emmanuel, and we call Javier freshman because he didn't get to play last year much. So we have the veterans, and then we have the freshmen, and you can tell there's a closeness about them because of that. But I can go back to the Final Four team, tell you how close they were, and to Rob Gray's team that, or Galen Robinson's team that lost to Kentucky. Every team we've had here is extremely, extremely close. But I think that's because they all buy into the culture. But what I've really enjoyed about this team is watching them improve. I think that's something that our entire staff takes a lot of pride in. We never overreact to our bad games, and we never overreact to our really good games. Because of course, this season that's going to happen. You have people that think you should never miss a free throw, should never have a bad offensive possession, should always have great defensive possessions. But when you're working with these kids every day, you never know what's going on in their life, because they're human beings. They're sons, nephews, brothers, and if somebody in their family, like we've had to deal with some deaths this year. We've had to deal with some shootings. We've had to deal with family members losing their jobs. And that affects these kids. We've had games where, we've actually said, do you want to sit this one out? But they went ahead and played. But those are things that, with a basketball team, people will look, but you don't know what you don't know. Right. As a coach, you just have to nurture them and love them and make sure they understand that the family's there for them.
Is that when having that mix of veterans and young guys beneficial for you as a coach? Because you can talk to them, right? You can relate to them a certain way, but it's totally different when you're talking to guys that are maybe 2 years older or 2 years younger. That interaction, I'm sure, is pretty valuable for you as a coach.
Absolutely. And I think the word that I use with all our guys is respect. They respect each other. Because if they don't have a rallying point or a common bond, then I know how to create one. Even though I may have to sacrifice to be the bad guy, which I don't mind. But when you have tough practices, hard practices, especially early, and the coach is getting on one or two guys, our guys are really good at grabbing those two guys and say, hey, you're going to be fine. We all went through it. Right. Having Kellen and Hollis and Quantas and KC, who's been with me an extended period of time, they understand too. Because Kellen went through it, Hollis went through it, Quantas went through it. So, but our veterans take a lot of pride in our culture. That's why it's the only word. I'm not big on sayings. I always tell our kids, never lose your chip and buy into the culture. And as long as you do those things, then you'll do good as a Cougar basketball player. But our veterans have been great with our freshmen, and that's been something that satisfying, I think is the word. I'm really blessed and thankful to have the kind of players that I have and the staff that I have, because they make this program look good.
What is it about your coaching style that you think resonates well with the young men that you coach?
Well, I think it starts with being comfortable who you are. I don't try to coach like anyone else. I respect everybody's coaching style. But I think the more successful coaches, especially over a period of time, they want everybody to buy in to their program, right? Sure. Well, the first person that has to do, you have to have a program first. What is your system? That's why I think we're so successful in recruiting. We have a system that we recruit to. We're just not taking random players because somebody said he's a 5-star. Yeah. I don't do that. Jairus, for instance, as he was making this decision, well, we had to make a decision whether we wanted to recruit him. Because if he was any other kind of person, he may come in and mess with your culture. Yeah. And nobody's above the program. But I think that's the thing that resonates with our kids on a daily basis. When I walk in the building every day, I have one job: to uphold the standards of our culture. And I don't negotiate. It's non-negotiable. I don't sit down and discuss it. I just hold everybody accountable to it. And there's 3 levels to it. We have standards, which creates expectations, which means you better have accountability. And in those 3 areas, we're pretty good.
Coachability is something that you always talk about with Jairus in particular, that you love the way that he's been able to be coached by you. When do you see that with players? Every player is different. And but when in a team that he's entering, that's got expectations that he's contributing to, there's a lot that goes into that. When do you see that development in coachability in players?
Well, there's trends that you can follow. For instance, he went to one high school for 4 years. Today, most of the 5 stars go to 3 or 4 different high schools. Jairus went to one. His mother and father both have extremely good jobs. They raised a tremendous family. His sisters are either on the verge of graduating from college or they already have. His home life is based on respect and discipline. When I watched him play AAU basketball, he played for Team Thrill, which is on the Under Armour circuit. And his AAU coach he's had since the 7th and 8th grade. Only played on one team.
Wow.
So when you look back at his AAU career, his high school career, his family, this was a kid we could move forward with. There's not a lot of inconsistencies in his life. He respects work, and he also respects leadership. And Jairus could be a leader, but he knows in this program that this is Marcus Sasser's team, and Jamal Shedd is our own court leader. And he will defer to them until it's time not to. Like the Virginia game, he took over in the second half. He's had several games like that. But Jairus is he's more interested in winning than his draft stock or his statistics, and that's what makes him special.
Does it make you even happier that you're advancing the careers of young men like that and others that may not have come from the stability that Jairus has had, but you're contributing and you're bringing them into a program and you're elevating them to a certain point, and that's got to make you feel good.
Yeah, there was a time in recruiting that the most important person in these kids' lives were their mothers because they didn't have dads in their lives. I've had probably most of my kids have been like that. But with kids like Jairus, his father wanted him to come here because of that. I'm going to say to my son, we're not going to choose a school. The name of the school is irrelevant to us. We're going to choose a coaching staff that has a background in developing players to be the best they can be. That is exactly what Horace Walker said to me when I walked into his house the first time. Same thing with Emmanuel Sharp. Same thing with Terrence Arsenault. Their dads saw our culture, saw the way they play. That's what my son needs. And we just try to fulfill our promise to these kids is that it's not going to be easy. Here's who we are. You don't hide anything in college. Every game we play is televised. Every game everybody plays is televised. So they see, but they chose to come here because of that. And that's what I'm really proud of.
Is that something that you picked up in your early days as a coach, developing a program, that one of the integral parts of developing a program is having something, no matter who you were coaching for, whatever the team name was of the school, it doesn't matter. This is the family, and the jersey is what we wear, but this is what we're all about.
Yeah. Well, all of my jobs, my first 2 jobs were, I got by default. I didn't get them because I was good, because I was not. I used to feel really sorry for my first couple of teams at Montana Tech because I was head coach way too early, but I was in the right place at the right time. But it was an engineering college, and the school didn't care much about basketball. They liked football a lot, and they had a great football program there. Then at Washington State, it was the Pac-10 at the time, and we were 10th out of 10 schools. So I had to develop my niche. Now our last 3, we were at Montana Tech for 4 full seasons, and I think the last 3 we won the conference championship or the conference and tournament championship, and advanced to the district finals those years. And that was a great accomplishment at Montana Tech. And that led me to Washington State. I'll tell you how much respect they gave me at Washington State. My first contract was a 2-year deal for $82,000.
Wow.
That's $41,000 a year, by the way.
I'm not good at math, but that's
no, it's not 2 years at $82,000 a year. It's $41,000 a year for $82,000.
Does that still motivate you? It's got to be motivating, no?
No, not at all, because they didn't know what I was. The only thing I had on my resume, I was head coach at Montana Tech, and as Judd used to say, that's not going to mean anything in you trying to get a head job, because nobody cares what you do at Montana Tech. Now, Judd had a tendency to be blunt.
I can tell.
Yeah.
That's what made his class so hard.
Yeah. But he said if you want to be a head coach in Division I, you need to be at Division I level. And that was his way of saying that you can win forever at Montana Tech, and that's not going to help you get a job. And at the time, he was right. I took that to heart. So after my first 4 years at Montana Tech, I took an assistant's job. I was actually the athletic director and basketball coach at Montana Tech when I left. But when I went to Washington State, it was the only job I could get. And so when I got there, the head coach took what he thought was a better job at the University of Nevada, because he thought that was the best job in the Big Sky, whereas Washington State was probably the hardest job in the Pac-10.
Yeah.
And so I understood why he did that. And then, Judd Heathcote graduated from Washington State, and he also went to Montana Tech his first year out of high school. So
it's amazing how things line up that way.
Yeah, Judd is a big reason. Judd died, I think 2007 or 8, something like that. And I miss him. I miss talking to him every day. Judd's favorite line is, Kelvin, I got good news and bad news. Which one do you want first? I said, the good. He said, hey, I caught your game last night. I said, what's the bad news? I saw your game last night. Who's in charge of recruiting your guards? But that was my conversations with Judd. But I was lucky that he took a shining to me, and I would not be here without Judd. But the person that influenced me the most absolutely was my father.
And what did he tell you? What advice did he give you that you still use today?
2 things. Number one, if you start listening to those people sitting there behind you, pretty soon you'll be sitting with them. I've never forgotten that. And number 2, don't ever lose sight of the fact that parents would much rather their son or daughter make the first team all-conference team than your team win the conference championship. And he was right on both.
And still true to this day, you think?
Even more so. Yeah. Social media has just exploded the second one, but and the first one. Everybody has a platform: talk radio, internet, whatever.
Yeah.
You have so many platforms in which to voice your opinion, but those are the only 2 things that he volunteered. Now, he was a Hall of Fame coach, and he could have said anything to me, and I'd have believed it. But he also believed in learning by your failures and not being afraid to fail. So most of the things I learned from failing, but I was at schools where I was allowed to fail, whereas today it would be a lot tougher.
Last year, you mentioned it, so I'm going to ask you. Last year, you were asked about the Hall of Fame. Do you think you're a Hall of Fame coach?
No, because I don't. When I think of Hall of Fame coaches, I think of Coach Bobby Knight, Coach Dean Smith, John Wooden. Those guys would all be on the Mount Rushmore. John McClendon, Big House Gaines. Those were the guys I looked up to. So when I think of Hall of Famers, I think of them. And I still think of myself as a coach that's still trying to get better at his craft, still trying to learn, and I do. I learn from everybody. I still out of bounds plays from AAU coaches in the summer. I watch a college game, and one of these young coaches who's way smarter than I am will do something. I said, hey, it's pretty good. So I'll call my video guy up or text him and say, at 11:46 in this game, go back and pull that play. Yeah. I want to look at it. So I'm always learning. I'm always trying to see how I can use other things to help my team. Because my ideas, most of my ideas are not original. You know, I get stuff from everybody, but no, I'm just, you know, trying to learn and get better. And
but people beg to differ, though. People put you in that category, and
well, I don't think I'm anywhere near the coaches in the Hall of Fame that I grew up looking up to. So for that reason alone, I would say no.
Well, what do you think about everyone coming up now looking at you the way you looked at those coaches?
Yeah. Now, one of the things,
that's pretty unique, I would imagine.
Yeah. Now, one of the things I enjoy doing is I do a lot of Zooms in the off season with all the black assistant coaches in college basketball, and I'm also on a Zoom call with all the black head coaches, and I enjoy mentoring a lot of those young guys. Like my guys, Kellen and Hollis and Quantas and KC. You know, I want them all to go on and be head coaches. And I want to help them in a way that I never had that help. You know, I don't want them to have to make the mistakes that I make. So a lot of times in a coaches meeting, I'll just say, hey, look, when you guys become head coaches, make sure you do this.
Yeah.
You know, and try to negotiate them around a bend in the river where they don't go off the take the raft over the falls, because I was on those falls plenty of times. Went over the falls a couple of times.
But it made you better.
Yeah, but
I just don't want them to go through some of those.
No, I don't want them to have to go through some of those, because my third year as a head coach at Washington State, my team lost 18 straight games. I would be fired today. You know, and I think that's important for all coaches. Don't ever forget where you came from, and stay humble. You know, this game, if you don't stay humble, this game will humble you. That's why. That's the other. One other thing my dad did tell me: when your team loses, make sure you always take responsibility, and when your team wins, make sure you give the credit to your players. And that's something that's stayed with me all these years.
I can hear your dad's voice when you do your press conferences. Yeah. That's pretty much the way you've operated. You mentioned Kellen. He sits next to you. Your daughter's part of the program. Right behind you at games, your grandchildren are sitting right there. Your granddaughter's wearing a cheerleader outfit, walking around. You're in the moment.
My wife is right behind me.
Your wife is right there. You're in the moment coaching the games. Is this the most fun you've had, you think, as a coach?
No question. It's the best job I've ever had because of that. You know, I think all my experiences, my failures and successes, you learn from all of them. You know, there's nothing that happens to you that doesn't impact you in some way, good or bad.
Yeah.
But you know, we realize, and Karen and I talk a lot, but we realize we're in the twilight of our careers. I mean, for goodness sake, our 44th wedding anniversary is this year. We've been married.
Congratulations.
In June it'll be 44 years. So we've seen a lot. You know, we've always moved around. We got married in North Carolina. She went with me to finish my master's, and I worked on my PhD for a year at Michigan State University. Then we're in Montana. Then we're in Pullman, Washington. Then we're in Oklahoma, Indiana, Milwaukee, and now Houston. And when you look behind us, where we've been, we've got two great children that I love dearly. We've got two grandkids. That's the apple of my eye. I've got an awesome wife that's been with me through everything, and here we are. You know, coaching a program where I have complete autonomy, and it's been a great ride. And this game has given me so much more than I've given it. My greatest thrills is when you've coached as many places as I am, you hear from your former players a lot. You know, there's not a day goes by I don't hear from kids from Montana Tech, Washington State, Oklahoma, Indiana, and even some of the Houston Rockets, assistants that I was with the Milwaukee Bucks. I've made so many great friendships that's lasted this long, but the ones I cherish the most is the former players.
That's when it hit you when you were watching that video when you won 700.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know leading up to it, you're like, okay, well, 700, it's a great accomplishment and all that. But when you were watching that video, I noticed everything kind of just hit you in that moment.
Yeah, I just wanted to get back to the locker room. I didn't really, but I didn't know they were going to do the video, and so actually I thought they might, but no one had confirmed it because I knew Lauren's sneaky now. She works on that stuff, but I almost made it to the tunnel, and they stopped me right there, and Kelvin come and grabbed me because I was on a beeline, and then because I knew I'd get emotional, you know, those kids they all mean so much to me, and then the fact that Lauren got them from all the schools we've been head coaches at, because you look back and you think of their stories, you know, when you first started recruiting them and getting to know their families and see the men and husbands and fathers that they've become today. I take pride in that. I'm proud of all of them.
And you're proud of what this program has done for not only the school, but for the city. I mean, you have the slogan for the city. It's energized college basketball fandom in this town. It doesn't matter if, I mean, you're a U of H grad. My son's 6 years old and he loves watching you guys play.
That's awesome.
And that is awesome for you guys as a staff, because when you got here, we know what the situation was, but now everyone checks in on you guys.
Yeah. No, that's where, when I say I don't care if we're ranked, but it's cool for our fans though. For a coach, it's neither here nor there to me. The first time it was cool. Hey, we're number one. Look where we were, look where we are. But you also realize that you're down in the arena, you know, sweating and bleeding and crying and doing all that stuff, just trying to win the next game. Whereas fans have a tendency to already think of the Final Four, and it's almost impossible to get to a Final Four. You know, I've had some teams I thought was worthy. We didn't make it because some kid got fouled at the buzzer shooting a jump shot and they made 3 free throws. Look at the Michigan shot that beat us. You know, that's why you don't just focus on the next game. And I always tell our players, focus on what's in front of you, not what's ahead of you. But it's been great. When I got here, I had 2 ADs that were forward thinking, and they helped me. They allow me to share my vision with them. This is what I see. This is what we need. And then they help me go get it.
And this is what you saw.
Yes.
What you have right now.
Because I helped design the practice facility at University of Oklahoma in 1999-2000. We went to the went to the Sweet 16 that year, beat Arizona, then lost to Michigan State. And then at Indiana, we did the same thing. We designed an even bigger, better version of the Price facility. So when I came here, I couldn't believe they didn't have one because I thought everybody had one at that point, but they didn't. But sitting down with Mac Rhodes and allowing me to be heavily involved in designing this one was a blessing. And then when Mac left about 3 or 4 months later, it was a blessing that I had Hunter Yurchek. Because Hunter played college basketball in the same district that I played at in college. He went to Guilford College in Greensboro. I went to University of North Carolina, Pembroke. They're both in District 26. Now I'm a lot older than Hunter, so I didn't play against him. But he was a basketball guy, and he realized that this needed to be done, and we worked and worked and worked and worked. You know, people here now. You know, if you weren't here from the beginning, you don't have an appreciation for it. You may love it, but you don't have an appreciation for it unless you saw it like it was when we got here. But you know, we've created a model that's sustainable, and it's because our staff is here year in and year out. We're lucky to have those guys, and they don't get enough credit because they know the kind of players that play for me that will work out for me because they played for me. And so they don't make many mistakes as far as character, integrity, academic standards, and the kind of person we want in our program. They're really good at that.
You mentioned it, the Final Four. You mentioned social media, and so I got to ask you in a certain way. The excitement obviously is building in town with the Final Four being here. You're game by game, moment by moment. How do you manage expectations with your players, with the outside noise, with the social, everything that goes along with the thought and the hope that this university will play in a Final Four in its hometown?
Yeah, well, that's an easy answer for me. I don't worry about it.
Yeah.
My expectations is we have our own expectations. I'm way too old to allow outside stuff to impact me in any way, form, or fashion. There's always a group of people. It's like the 999 theory. There's always going to be 9 people that love you. There's going to be 9 people that don't like you. And then there's going to be 9 people that's on the fence. Mm-hmm. So if you're worried about that stuff, it's not going to matter. It doesn't matter. What matters is how we handle getting better. Yeah. We've taken a lot of pride that we're better in February than January, better in January than December, November, all the way through. We still have another month to go, and we're still in the process of getting better. And that's really all I focus on. I know how difficult it is to win a game.
Right.
It's hard to win a game. If you never coach, you don't understand that. The year we went to the Final Four, probably should have lost to Rutgers. We're down 9 with under 5 to go. Quentin goes to the line and misses both free throws. We wound up with the offensive rebound, swing it to him, he hits a 3. If he made 1 or 2 free throws, no way. Well, I shouldn't say no way. Probably not.
Yeah.
But that's how fragile it is, and that's why I don't worry about expectations.
How much longer do you have coaching?
I don't know. I never thought I'd be coaching this long. I didn't. I'll be 68 in October, and you don't know. It's Carrie and I are starting to talk about it a little bit more, I think, but it's not something I have an answer for.
One day at a time, right?
Yeah. What's in front of us? We got SMU on Thursday night, so getting ready for them this week and go win another road game. That's our goal.
Awesome. Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Bet, Daniel.